I'm Daniel James, and you're listening to 7am. The Albanese government has moved quickly on the Royal Commission into antisemitism, accepting all of the recommendations from its first report before public hearings begin. It comes at a volatile moment in national politics after the issue was seized on by the opposition in the wake of the Bondi terror attack, and as tensions around the conflicts in Iran, Gaza and Lebanon continue to expose the deep divisions across the country. Meanwhile, One Nation is trying to turn its momentum in the polls into something more lasting, all backed by a private plane from Gina Air and millions of dollars in donations from her allies. Today, ABC Radio Melbourne's Raf Epstein on the Royal Commission, the politics of One Nation, and whether the divisions running through the country are likely to deepen. It's Saturday, May 2. Raf, thanks for coming on 7am. The first report from the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism was handed over to the government late this week. What did you make of the government's response, and particularly the PM?
Well, he was denying reality in some ways. The Royal Commission actually produced something really interesting, even in the interim report. They've flooded the security agencies with money, but they've drained the coffers when it comes to counter-terrorism.
Did those funding decisions leave the intelligence agencies without essential resources?
No, indeed, the report shows the opposite.
We're talking stonkingly large amounts of money. This is both equally a coalition government thing and a Labor government thing, by the way. The security agencies have gone from $56 billion to $73 billion. That's an extraordinary increase. The details we aren't allowed to know because they're the security agencies, but the spending on counterterrorism went down. The Royal Commissioner says it's significantly declined. The reason is the caliphate falls over, the ISIS caliphate at the end of the 2010s, and everyone goes, oh, China, everyone else, espionage. So they shift a lot of the effort. But that presents a real difficulty for a government. Sure, some of it happened under the coalition. They spent less on counterterrorism. They downgraded the people inside the security infrastructure that keep an eye on this stuff. That's a real weakness politically.
It does show that overall increase, but it says there was a decline in the funding for counter-terrorism. So do you need to link the funding more clearly to ensure it goes to the right places?
The report makes it clear that there was no inadequacy when it comes to preventing terrorist acts as a result of government agencies.
It also, if you're part of the community that endured the massacre in December, you're allowed to ask legitimate questions and say, oh, hang on, if you spent less on counter-terrorism, why? Would it have made a difference? We don't know it would have made a difference, but that's a real potential political opening and certainly an opening for significant sections of the media. So the PM doesn't want to talk about that. He just wants to talk about the general rise in the amount of money. Those decisions around, different priorities, they're not partisan decisions. Both the Coalition and Labor did them. But that's a vulnerability. That's an interesting wrinkle already at this stage of the Royal Commission.
Let's go to controlling the narrative, because the Royal Commission's first public hearings kick off on Monday, looking into the nature and prevalence of anti-Semitism in this country and hearing from Australians who've experienced it firsthand. It's sure to be very evocative, very emotional. Do you think that could result in some of that finger-pointing you were just talking about towards the government?
Oh, it definitely will. We know it will. One really interesting parallel was this terrible attack in a very Jewish suburb in London called Golders Green. Keir Starmer, also a Labor PM, holds a Shabbat dinner in Downing Street every Friday night. His wife's Jewish. His kids go to a Jewish school.
Yeah.
He does that in Downing Street. He was booed on the streets of London because someone horrifically had gone around trying to find observant Jews to stab and managed to stab two of them. So that real visceral anger from inside the Jewish community, doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, it's real, it's present, it's going to come up in these public hearings. There's a whole plethora of Jewish organisations. They are all running workshops. They are desperate to get all the different points of view from inside the Jewish community in front of the Royal Commissioner and other people in the community. So, there's going to be a lot of finger-pointing. I think what's interesting is how contested these things are. You're on that march on a Sunday shouting Free Palestine because you believe that the Palestinian people's future is under real threat. People on the other side of it say, no, you are the real threat. That's a hate march. Now, they are some of the most hotly contested politics that I've seen in a very long time in this country. Somehow, a royal commissioner, a judge, is going to have to adjudicate on those things. That's not easy. So, yeah, there's going to be a hell of a lot of finger pointing that will come up in the public hearings.
I mean, you know, through your role as a host of ABC Melbourne Mornings and the talkback that you get, that things are pretty divided right now in the community, and one of the true nexus points is Gaza. I mean, is there a risk this Royal Commission could divide us further?
I genuinely don't know sometimes if it's better or worse to have more discussion and debate. Of course, in theory, the contest of ideas. Of course, I believe in that. Otherwise, I wouldn't. I've been in the ABC for 30 years because I believe in the contest of ideas. But you wouldn't be human if you didn't feel like sometimes these conversations just end up grinding each other's point of view into the dust and not engaging with it. So could it divide us further? Yeah, absolutely it could. Yeah, it really could. Do we need to talk about it? Yes. Is it the best way to do it, a Royal Commission? Well, you know, our politicians and our media aren't doing an awesome job of dealing with that debate at the moment, are we? So I guess putting a formal, non-partisan framework around it could be good. Yeah, I really worry. I live in one of the most Jewish parts of Melbourne. Grew up with a very strong member of the Jewish community. I've lost friends. My family's fighting about it. Like, it's divisive even inside the Jewish community before you even get outside of it. So yes, it could divide us further, but I have no answers about how to heal these divides.
Still to come, Pauline Hanson's shiny new gift from her billionaire buddy.
This is about providing the wings for a movement that refuses to let the heart of this country be silenced. This aircraft is not for joyrides. This aircraft is for the battle for Australians.
Raf, this week, in the middle of a cost of living crisis, we saw One Nation gifted a private plane from Australia's richest woman, Gina Air, as well as $2 million in donations from the billionaire's friends. It was all unveiled in a very slick promo video where Pauline described herself as grassroots.
It hasn't been an easy journey. I was elected 30 years ago to the Parliament, just straight out of my fish and chip shop, a business that I was proud to own, as a single parent to provide for my family. I'm a grassroots Australian.
Grassroots isn't something normally associated with private planes and billionaires. Does this pass the pub test? Will it sway any votes one way or the other?
Here's what's interesting. It's very clear the left-right thing doesn't matter nearly as much as it used to in politics. That's really new. The tectonic plates are shifting. Whatever happened in Europe and America, especially on the right, but with populism in general, we are now and forgive this phrase because I know it's got other connotations, but instead of it being a left-right battle, it's a top-bottom fight, right? If I'm on the bottom, I'm being downtrodden, I want someone who sticks up for me. On the face of it, Gina Rinehart's Australia's richest person. She's giving Pauline Hanson a plane. Her friends are giving significant contributions to One Nation. That would seem to work against the very thing that is putting real rocket fuel underneath Pauline Hanson's vote, at least in the polls. Does it pass the pub test for the One Nation voters? Might be the important vote. We know that a significant, vast majority of Australian voters really don't like Donald Trump. Gina Rinehart's really closely associated with Donald Trump. Do things like this take some of the shine off One Nation for One Nation voters? I think it's unlikely. If you're One Nation curious, you're One Nation curious whether or not Gina Rinehart relates to you. There does seem to be, especially on the populist right, if you're rich but want to tear down the system, that's okay. If you're rich and want to maintain the system, or if you're rich and want to do radical things on the left, that's not okay. There does seem to be some sort of immunity for the rich on the right who want to tear down the system. And I think Gina Rinehart might fall into that basket. It's not to say that doesn't change, but someone's thrown all of the cards up in the air in the game of politics in this country and around the world. So we'll see.
All the cards are up in the air on a windy day, Raf.
Yes.
I mean, is the strategy from the Liberals and from Labor to a lesser extent then to try and tie Pauline Hanson via Gina Rinehart close to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's popularity in Australia at the moment is through the floor?
I think that, the strategy, and the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, was very explicit when the story came out about the plane. He said, have a look at Pauline Hanson's votes in the Senate.
I think Pauline Hanson's a wholly owned subsidiary of Gina Rinehart. And we know this because whenever Pauline Hanson is asked to vote in the interests of Australian workers, she instead votes in the interests of Gina Rinehart.
So Labor's trying to tap into that. It's unusual, I think, to find a significant member of a government having a go at Australia's richest person. Sure, she's on the Conservative side of politics and she's about, but it's normally something they would walk on by and let that sort of thing sort itself out. The Liberal Party are in genuine existential crisis. They have no idea how to deal with Pauline Hanson and Gina Rinehart. I am sure they're worried that Gina Rinehart is backing One Nation and not backing them. I don't really understand what the Liberal Party strategy is. I don't think they can tell me privately really what their strategy is. And I don't know that Labor's got a great answer either. They'll give it a go. I don't think the PM will touch that sort of stuff. The Treasurer does that because senior ministers do a bit of the aggro that you don't want the leader to do. That's sort of politics 101. And I don't know if it's going to work.
One Nation's appeal in Victoria will be tested this weekend at the Nepean state by-election, the first real-world test for the party post the SA election. How is that contest looking? Could we see Pauline's party get up, or are we looking like it could be a Liberal thing? Which way is it going?
First thing to say is the Liberal Party are increasingly nervous about this. The new first-term opposition leader, Liberal leader, Jess Wilson, has spent every single minute that she can on pre-poll.
Right across our team, we have people focused on cost of living in every portfolio. That's why we've already announced that we'll reduce a number of taxes to put money back in the pockets of Victorians. Taxes will always be lower under a government I lead.
Senior members of her shadow cabinet, in fact, I think practically the whole shadow cabinet, have made trips there. They're clearly worried. There's no Labor candidate. I think if you're listening outside of Victoria, it's really important to know that this seat of Nepean in many ways is like the seat of Farrer, where that by-election is the week after. This is essentially internal trouble leads to Liberal MP leaving Parliament, a by-election being imposed on an electorate that is assumed to be a Liberal electorate, and One Nation's coming in and is one of, if not the most significant competitors. That is why I use the words like genuine existential crisis. The Liberal Party should win the seat of Nepean. If you've ever heard of Portsea, Sorrento, not all of the seat of Nepean is like that, but it's that bottom bit of the Mornington Peninsula. If they don't win and One Nation gets up, or if they don't win and somehow the Independent gets up, that is crisis for the Victorian Liberals. They've been out for close to 12 years. They've already got a huge electoral mountain to climb. It would be an absolute crisis if they lost. They are nervous. It's going to be a crucial little bit of data. In some ways, it's harder than something like the state election in South Australia. State election in South Australia was a real vote that could have potentially changed the makeup of the government. It makes a difference. In some ways, similar to South Australia, you wanted to punish the Liberal Party in South Australia. You didn't think they were going to win the election anyway. Give them a kick on the way through and vote for One Nation. So there wasn't a consequence in some way to the South Australian election. That's the danger in Nepean. It's the danger in Farrer. It's not going to change the government. So if I'm One Nation curious but normally a Liberal voter, stuff it. I'm not going to go to the Liberals. I'll give them a kick up the backside. I'll vote One Nation. That's the danger for the Liberal Party.
And finally, Raf, do you think we can read anything into the result, whether that will be repeated at all in the Farrer by-election in Susan Lee's old seat next weekend? Is this going to be an indicator one way or another of One Nation's national appeal?
Oh, look, they're pretty different seats. Farrer's very rural. There is significant disadvantage and homelessness on the Mornington Peninsula, but there's also extreme wealth and decent sort of middle-class wealth. By-elections, as much as they have national parties in them, and One Nation now is really a national party, you can read a little bit into it. I'm just really cautious. The federal election last year, to go back to where we started, Gaza just seemed like the biggest thing running a jolt of electricity through Australian politics. It really did. And so many people who spend the time to be involved in the news, politicians and media, felt it was going to really take some skin off Anthony Albanese's government. And it was going to take skin off Anthony Albanese's government in Victoria because this government, the state government in Victoria, is on the nose. None of those predictions came true. I just think politics is getting much, much tougher to predict. We're all in our own little digital silos. I'd be wary about using the PM as an indicator of what's going to happen in Farah. We all know things are changing, though. We can all feel it. We see it. You just know it in every conversation you have. None of us know where it lands.
Well, Raf, some of us have to worry about windy days more than others. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's have you back again soon.
An absolute privilege and a pleasure to be on 7am with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
There we go. We just got the Raf bump. 7am is a daily show from Solstice Media. It's made by Atticus Bastow, Ariel Richards, Chris Dangate, Crystal Keller, Nicole Johnston, Travis Evans, Zoltan Vecho, and me, Daniel James. Our theme music is by Ned Beckley and Josh Hogan of Envelope Audio. Thank you for listening to 7am this week. It really means a lot. Have yourself a great weekend.